आदमी बदल सकता है, बदल सकता है निजाम को, अवाम को, समाज को।
रोक सकता है करप्शन को, महंगाई की यलगार को, नाइंसाफी को। एक आम आदमी सब बदल सकता है। एक आम आदमी सोच सकता है रोशन मुस्तकबिल को, मुल्क की तामीर को, तरक्की के रास्तों को। सब कुछ बदल सकता है,
सब कुछ बदल सकता है,
सब कुछ बदल सकता है।
जब खबर आम हो, जब खबर अवाम हो और दुनिया हो आपकी।
रोजनामा दुनिया, खबर की दुनिया।
I'm your host Arshad Sharif, and today we have with us British High Commissioner to Pakistan, Mr. Adam Thomson. Before coming to Pakistan, Mr. Adam Thomson was serving in the British Foreign and Commonwealth Office and looking after South Asia with particular interest in Afghanistan, Pakistan and India. Mr. Adam Thomson, thank you very much for talking to Dunya News.
Thank you.
Pakistan is quite an interesting place.
It's an absolutely fascinating place.
What's happening in Pakistan?
Professionally, it's the best job I've ever had in my life.
Right, and what's happening in Pakistan?
A lot. It's a society and a political system that's growing up, and it has a lot of growing pains, I guess.
Elections are scheduled, though there's a lot of talk about elections or a caretaker setup. What do you think, will the elections be held on time? What's your assessment? Because I believe you keep getting a lot of assessment reports.
Yeah, I mean, we have to say Britain is very interested in what is happening in Pakistan, because our own prosperity and well-being depends on things going well in Pakistan. And we really believe that the only way forward, not necessarily an easy one, is for Pakistan's democracy to put down roots, for this to become a stable, prosperous, democratic, constitutionally governed country. And for that, you have to have periodic elections. These elections look to us as outside observers incredibly important for the future of this country, because for more or less the first time, as we understand it, Pakistan will be seeing a government complete its term and the country go into credible elections which lead to another civilian government, with every expectation of a further full term by that government. We do think the elections will be held on time and actually not before time, and we think the elections will be credible for the international community and crucially for the people of Pakistan.
What needs to be done for the credibility of the elections? Because I believe a lot of British funding goes into ensuring transparent elections in Pakistan. Are there some projects which are in the pipeline, which are being implemented right now?
We are certainly happily supporting quite a number of projects. It's a drop in the bucket in terms of what Pakistan needs for credible elections, but we're happy to make our contribution. Examples, we're supporting civil society organizations like FAFN to help boost voter turnout at the time of the elections, particularly to boost voter turnout in remote areas where there was little or no women voting last time. We're helping those civil society organizations to build their capacity to monitor the elections. We're giving the Election Commission support alongside the European Union and Canada. We're going to be running some media programs which will bring young Pakistanis face-to-face on TV with parliamentarians and political candidates to debate issues like the economy or education or governance.
High Commissioner, it has been observed in Pakistan that some of the funding which the European Union, the United States or the British government gives to the civil society organizations, that is not properly utilized. It's always the conference circle, the advocacy campaigns. And at the end of the day, once you try to find out the result as to what has been actually done on the ground, you find nothing changes much except that conference circuit going around and around in the name of advocacy campaigns. Have you tried to address these concerns, or have such concerns been conveyed to you earlier as well?
You bet. I mean, this is often raised by Pakistanis with me, and it has to be one of our concerns because I've got to account to British taxpayers, and the International Development Minister has to, that we're spending tax money properly, sensibly, with real results. So we're not interested in the conference circuit, we're interested in outcomes, and we're interested in making sure those outcomes are properly monitored so that there's no leakage of money, no corruption. We have rigorous systems for monitoring where our assistance goes, and we're very, very focused with our partners in civil society or with the Election Commission on being clear about what results will flow from our support.
High Commissioner, you made a statement about Pakistan leading in forgery of the visa scam. You still stand by that statement, or there are some changes which have been effected?
I have to say that Pakistan is a very entrepreneurial culture and a very entrepreneurial country. It's got many great, really impressive businessmen. It is also right up there alongside perhaps just one other country in terms of the creativity with which visas are pursued. And we're very interested in putting out of business visa agents who rip people off. An ordinary Pakistani can get a British visa just by applying to us. They don't have to go through a visa agent. And if they're a genuine traveler, they don't have to produce forged documents.
High Commissioner, after 9/11, once the war against terror started, a lot of Pakistanis faced a number of problems in getting the British visa. Have you now relaxed those terms and conditions? Are you facilitating the Pakistanis, or Pakistanis are still in that red zone where they have to be scrutinized very closely?
I mean, our handling of visa applications from Pakistanis is the same as our handling of visa applications from any other country in the world. So there's no discrimination there, and we couldn't discriminate under our laws. What we do have to do is to make sure that every visa we issue goes to a genuine traveler, and that can require very close scrutiny. It's not so much about after 9/11, it's just about the pressure from people who may not be genuine travelers or who may be going to a not genuine institution, educational institution in the UK, and we have to winnow out those applications.
High Commissioner, you mentioned that elections in Pakistan are linked to Britain. How that is possible?
Well, we believe that we have an intimate, personal interest in Pakistan's future success. I like to say we're joined at the hip. The large British Pakistani community, our history, our cultural links, all our trading links, all make sure that we could never walk away from Pakistan. If Pakistan goes well, we will flourish because we will enjoy more trade, more people-to-people ties, and so on. If Pakistan does not flourish, we will undoubtedly suffer, whether it is through organized crime or our shared problem with drugs trafficking or illegal migration, people trafficking, all those kind of problems. So Pakistan is a country of very great importance to Britain, to my country, and it's of immense importance to us that Pakistan should really flourish, which takes us back to successful elections.
Right, High Commissioner, we have to take a short break here, and once we come back, we'll try to ask the High Commissioner as to what's happening on the front of war against terror in terms of Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Britain. After a short break. Welcome back. We are with the British High Commissioner to Pakistan, Mr. Adam Thomson. Adam Thomson, it's almost now 11 years since the war against terror started. Why you didn't learn from history, and why you have again lost in Afghanistan?
I think we're learning fast from history. We always try to. I'd just like to say, to start with, war on terror is not a term that we in Britain, in fact, use. We think the challenges are much more around an ideological debate, around good policing, around building governance. In Afghanistan, in 11 years, the country has been transformed. It's still very, very far from a stable, prospering, flourishing society. But if you have visited Afghanistan, as I have over the years, you will see how more and more kids are in school, how more and more of the country is under the control of the Afghan army, not of ISAF, how more and more military operations are led by the Afghan National Army, how there is less and less desertion from that army, for example, how the international community is committed to supporting Afghanistan for the long term. The Chicago summit promised $4 billion a year, dollars a year for Afghanistan's armed forces, and the Tokyo conference promised the same amount for society and economy. So as the international community pulls back in Afghanistan, we do believe that the Afghans can run their country and deliver security. There's no purely military solution, and I think we in Britain are recognized as leading advocates for a political settlement in Afghanistan to go alongside with that society building and economic growth and military effort.
High Commissioner, my question is still the same. Why are you lost in Afghanistan?
I don't think we have lost in Afghanistan. It's the way you and others frame the question. It's not a war on terror, and there is no purely military solution in Afghanistan. It is about equipping the Afghan authorities at federal, at sort of national level, and at provincial level to run a more or less stable country. And long strides have been taken on that. There is a very substantial amount of pessimism in Pakistan, which I recognize and encounter, but which we feel is not completely justified by the present facts on the ground.
High Commissioner, starting from the Bonn conference, you mentioned Tokyo, Chicago, and London conference as well, so many conferences in Afghanistan, and you said it's not war on terror. The terminology keeps changing, but the facts on the ground tell a different story. How much area is under the control of the Taliban? Well, the reports coming from there say it's almost 70% now.
Yeah, and I think we would dispute that. Who controls a field or open areas? It's whoever's there at the time. What I would prefer to focus on is the fact that we have seen the Afghan Taliban show a degree of interest in contact and negotiation and talks. We have seen the Afghan national security forces increasingly, especially over the last couple of years, take on their responsibilities. And this, by the way, is good news for Pakistan, because it is very difficult to imagine Pakistan successfully stabilizing its side of the Afghan-Pakistan border if the other side is not to some degree stabilized also. So we're encouraging our Pakistani colleagues to support the positive things that are happening in Afghanistan and very much to work with the Afghan government on an Afghan-led, Afghan-owned political settlement.
High Commissioner, once you were in the British Foreign and Commonwealth Office, were you the initiator of the reconciliation policy and talks with the Taliban in opposition to the rest of your other colleagues?
I certainly had a role, and it certainly wasn't in opposition to my other colleagues. Britain has been making clear internationally and in the region for a number of years now that there is no purely military solution, that there has to be a political approach. And that was true just as much of the previous British government as of the present one.
The government of Prime Minister Tony Blair, was it clear to him?
Yes, it was, yeah.
Then why it took so many casualties of the British soldiers, of British citizens, as well as the Afghans, to come to this realization?
I don't think it is a realization. For our misfortunes, we've had our own experiences of dealing with instability and terrorism. And it was Tony Blair himself who, in Northern Ireland, pursued a long and difficult political peace process. we don't see why that same realization doesn't apply in Afghanistan.
High Commissioner, once you go back over the 11 long years of history in Afghanistan, and obviously Pakistan paying a heavy price for that, at least 40,000 civilian casualties, civilian and military casualties in Pakistan as well. The perception is that Britain has been going along with the United States in this war on terror. And once you analyze the discourse which is taking place, the United States and Britain are taken together. What steps have you taken to disassociate yourself from the Americans in this war on terror, where President Obama still uses the same term?
We don't use that term, but you need to recognize that in Afghanistan, the United States is a very major player. It has still some 100,000 troops on the ground. We have some 9,000. That gives you
when
a
those
sense
9,000 are going back?
Well, we've said that British forces will be out of combat in 2014. So quite soon, in fact, along with the rest of ISAF. I don't think we need to dissociate ourselves from the United States, although I recognize that the US is not very popular in Pakistan at the moment. The US, as we understand it, is pursuing a political as well as a military track in Afghanistan, is trying to help stabilize Afghanistan, is concerned about the impacts.
Yes, but there's a lot of differences between the British policy and the US policy in Afghanistan. Once you talk about troops withdrawal, then you keep getting the threats from the American military generals that you would not be provided the cover to withdraw. So how do you overcome these differences and convey to the public that yes, these things are there, and Britain has a different policy? Because the statements which come out, and like you just said, that you stand with the Americans, and over the last 11 years you have been standing with the Americans. So why people should not see you as one party?
Well, I could ask the same question of Pakistan, which has been standing with the Americans in Afghanistan and on Afghanistan. But there are national differences for Pakistan as well as for the UK, I guess, and it's a question of diplomacy.
Well, it's a question of diplomacy, and it's time to take a short break, and once we come back we will ask the High Commissioner about challenges of diplomacy in Pakistan and Afghanistan after a very short break. Welcome back. We are talking to the British High Commissioner to Pakistan, Mr. Adam Thomson, and before going to the break we were talking about challenges of diplomacy in Pakistan and Afghanistan. High Commissioner, what's the biggest challenge of diplomacy in Pakistan? We believe that drone strikes are taking place, and what's the British stance? Should these drone strikes continue or not?
Actually, the biggest challenge for international diplomacy in Pakistan is understanding Pakistan. It's a very complex political, social, economic, geopolitical setup. And Pakistan, I think, has not only suffered worse in if you like your phrase, the war on terrorism, than any other country. As you say, over 40,000 casualties is an appalling toll. It has also suffered very badly in terms of the international narrative about the country and its role towards Afghanistan. So one of my major jobs, it's the responsibility of any good ambassador, is to explain as clearly and fairly and factually as possible to my own government what is actually going on, what Pakistani decision makers are actually thinking, what their intentions are, rather than the international media narrative about Pakistan. It's also a job I have in quite different areas than, for example, Afghanistan. I have the same challenge in the trade relationship and in business, and I spend quite a lot of my time back in the UK having to explain to British business that Pakistan is nothing like as dangerous and scary and even corrupt a place as appears from the international media coverage of the country. It's really important that we don't let our diplomacy be shaped by mistaken perceptions, but found it really on the hard facts as well as we can understand them. So that's my main challenge.
The complexity of understanding Pakistan. High Commissioner, what's your stance on the drone strikes which take place in Pakistan's tribal areas? Pakistan's parliament has passed resolutions. There's been a lot of outcry on that. What's the British stance? Should these drone strikes continue?
Yeah, I'm not very interesting on the subject, I'm afraid, Arshad, because my response is that's really a matter for the United States and Pakistan to sort out.
But you are a partner in that war. You are also partners with Pakistan. What's your stance, the stance of the British government?
I still say it's a matter for the US and Pakistan to sort out. I'd add that for Britain it is very important to see US-Pakistan relations improving and not deteriorating. So the very rough patch that those relations have been through has not been good for anyone.
High Commissioner, this law and order situation in Balochistan, and the government of Pakistan had given you a list of some of what they call as the insurgent Baloch leaders who are allegedly being patronized by the British intelligence services. Is that true?
No.
Okay, I take that coming from the High Commissioner, but my understanding...
Well, you have to. I mean, you don't have to believe me, but it's absolutely true.
That's the High Commissioner response, and I accepted what the High Commissioner says, but my understanding was that a list was shared and investigations were carried out. Some of the lists were exchanged with the Interior Ministry, and the perception is that insurgency in Balochistan is being somehow linked to the Baloch leaders who are present in the United Kingdom.
Well, that's a very unfortunate perception. There are all sorts of people in the United Kingdom whose politics we don't approve of, and although I'm not going to go into the detail on this program because it's sensitive, we have actually taken action in the past on matters of concern to Pakistan's governments. But to suggest that we could, as a government, as Britain, be wanting to support separatism anywhere in Pakistan, that's fantasy.
Most of the people...
Because, I mean, think about it. Why would we want to do anything to damage Pakistan when what we need of Pakistan is a successful
One of the arguments
state.
which is given whenever Britain has been asking for some of the people who have been found involved in terror activities in the United Kingdom, Pakistan has been very cooperative to hand them over back to the United Kingdom for investigations, interrogations. But once it comes to the list which is provided by the government of Pakistan, Britain is not that much cooperative.
I'm not confirming any list. In fact, in reference to Balochistan, I'm not aware of one. But we do have really quite substantial counter-terrorism collaboration, just as we have good collaboration on organized crime or drugs, as I've described before. And these are very important areas for the UK-Pakistan relationship. We think that our intelligence liaison relationship is improving. And it's just one manifestation of a very rich, very broad relationship between the UK and Pakistan, which we pursue under the umbrella of our enhanced strategic dialogue. But it includes serious stuff like dealing with terrorism, which is a mutual problem. We both share that problem. But it extends to trade. It extends also to aid, where Pakistan will be our largest assistance program by next year. It covers education, where we have more to offer Pakistan than any other country in the world.
What programs are you bringing in terms of education for Pakistan?
I'm glad you asked. We are supporting in a very big way for us the transformation of Pakistan's primary education sector. It's not particularly glamorous getting 5 to 9-year-olds into school, but we don't think any country can hope to flourish in the 21st century if less than 2/3 of its kids ever see the inside of a primary school, let alone complete school. So within the largest assistance program in the world that we run, the largest component is supporting primary education. But we also have links all the way up to research collaboration between British and Pakistani university faculties. Pakistanis make really important contributions at the postgraduate level to research in Britain. We have more Pakistani undergraduates studying in the UK, proportionate to population, than we have Chinese or Indians or Americans. So it's multifarious.
What are the details of this intervention in the primary education sector in Pakistan? Because I was going through some of the news reports, and I think only 20 evening scholars are going from Pakistan this year, whereas previously this number used to be around 40 to 50, and that seems to have been cut down. Is that a policy decision to go for the primary sector education and not for the higher education?
No, we're still doing both. And in fact, our Chevening program here in Pakistan is still one of our very largest in the world. But 20 scholarships, although it's great, and although I think you've benefited from it, are just a tiny bit of the connections between our two countries. In higher education, what I'm most focused on is trying to get British universities in increasing numbers to come and offer their degrees here in Pakistan, so that you don't have to go to the UK for a British degree. Primary education is run out of our development budget, and there we are really trying to drive significant change, partly by helping provincial governments transform the quality of their management of the public sector, partly by helping them empower low-cost private sector education. And it's making a difference.
We'll take a short break here, and once we come back, we'll talk about sports with the High Commissioner after a very short break. Welcome back. We are talking to the British High Commissioner to Pakistan, with Mr. Adam Thomson. High Commissioner, you are also holding the Paralympics after the Olympics. Why Britain is so much interested in the sports diplomacy, certainly?
Well, it's not a sudden. I mean, we won the bid for the Olympics and the Paralympics in 2005, and it's been 7 years of preparation. But you're right, we are trying to make of the 2012 Paralympics something really special and spectacular. It's the first time in Olympic history that the Olympics and the Paralympics have been planned together as one coherent whole. And the first time that disability has featured in the preparations for the Olympics as well as the Paralympics. These will be the second biggest sporting event in 2012. It'll be 4,000 athletes, 150 countries, 471 events, dozens and dozens and dozens of gold medals, a lot of which we hope the Paralympic Team GB is going to win, and something really special, as I think people are already seeing on their television screens. The Paralympics has grown phenomenally since they started in Britain in 1948, alongside the 1948 London Olympics, when there were just 16 athletes. Pakistan has been competing since 1992, and although it's sadly not well known in Pakistan, you've got a great team. Your long jumper Haider Ali at the Beijing Paralympics broke the world record for the long jump, and he's aiming to win gold this time in London. Naeem Masih is one of your great Paralympic runners, so I'm really cheering for the Pakistani Paralympic team alongside the UK.
Commissioner, those sentiments are very well appreciated. But, since Britain has experience of using sports for diplomacy, can these sports be used by the government of Pakistan to reduce extremism and militancy and propagate them properly here?
I think that sport in general can play a role as part of education. One of the things we've been very keen to achieve with the Olympics and the Paralympics is to leave an international legacy for the next generation, for young people. And in 20 countries around the world, including Pakistan, we have been supporting the building of sports into school curricula. We hope to have reached, by the end of our international inspiration effort, some 2 million Pakistani kids. That makes a small contribution. We've used the Paralympics and the Olympics in a different way as well, because we've had British business embassies alongside the sporting events, inviting businessmen from around the world to come and enjoy the sport, but also to come and talk business with us. And of course, just inviting 150 countries to participate in the Paralympics, or over 200 for the Olympics themselves, is a fantastic way of advertising what we are, who we are in modern Britain. For the Paralympics, it's a message about inclusiveness, that we are a society that is open and tolerant, that really believes that we gain in strength by including all our diversity. In the case of the Paralympics, it's disablement, but it's also our very cosmopolitan society from many, many different countries, including over 1 million British Pakistanis, that makes us strong, we think. Taking us back to our conversation about the elections, it's why we think it's so important that women and minority groups should be empowered to participate in Pakistan's democracy. It's the same thought about strength through inclusiveness.
Right, High Commissioner, what are your targets for Pakistan next 3 months, next 6 months? What are the biggest challenges which you are addressing, the programs which the British High Commissioner is taking forward?
Pakistan, it's Pakistan's challenges rather than ours probably, but for me in my mission, really moving forward on the education effort is probably my #1 priority. And we need to see that effort continue through Pakistan's upcoming caretaker government and into partnership with the next lot of provincial and federal governments. So that's probably #1. Continuing to push good understanding in Britain, whether it's in government or in business or just in our media, of Pakistan, of its challenges, of how difficult it is for Pakistan to flourish in a difficult region with very significant economic and social challenges. That's another priority for me.
In terms of diplomatic relations between Pakistan, Afghanistan and Britain being an important player there, how you are ensuring that Pakistan has a stake in Afghanistan for the future peace there?
Well, we've been very clear, and my Prime Minister actually said it when he visited in April last year, that we need to be concerned not just for stability in Afghanistan, but for stabilization in Afghanistan that is stabilizing on this side of the border here in Pakistan. We see Pakistan as having a really important stake in political settlement in Afghanistan. We see Pakistan as being a key player, a key partner in helping bring about a political settlement in Afghanistan, working with the Afghan government. And if we can contribute in any way, we would love to do so. It will be quiet diplomacy, not out in public on television shows.
High Commissioner, one last question. Do you see the return of Taliban in Afghanistan as well as in Pakistan?
No, I really don't. If we are to be serious about a political settlement in Afghanistan, then all parts of the Afghan political spectrum need to be part of that if it's to be stable. But the Afghan people have endured years of Taliban rule. They endure now a continuation of Taliban misdeeds. The majority of civilian casualties come from Taliban action. So, although I can't claim to know the Afghan people as well as my Pakistani friends, my strong guess is that the Taliban will not sweep back in Afghanistan. And that will be good for Pakistan, we think, because it cannot be good for a flourishing Pakistan to see re-Talibanization next door. There is a risk that that would surely seep back into Pakistan. So we're very hopeful that working with Pakistan, with Afghanistan, drawing on the strength of our really good relations between Britain and Pakistan, we can find a way forward that is peaceful, is stabilizing.
High Commissioner, thank you very much for talking to me.
Pleasure. Thank you.